Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about episode 2 of the new HBO series The Idol, entitled Double Fantasy. I'm not really sure why this episode is called Double Fantasy. I have an idea. There's a song on the soundtrack, which I don't think the soundtrack's fully released, but there's a song with The Weeknd and Future that's called Double Fantasy. I don't think we live in a world where we name our episode titles off of songs. So I think probably my best guess here is that the final sequence of the episode with Tedros, Jocelyn, and that girl Chloe, who is hiding, is probably a fantasy of Tedros, a double fantasy, if you will. Like he wants to have someone watching while he does what he was doing, which, how uninspired is that for a kink, right? Like, I mean, in a world of kinks that are just like, and when I say unimaginable, I'm not trying to be insulting. I mean, like, there's people who have kinks that like someone like me wouldn't even think of. Like, I couldn't even come up with it. So in a world where everyone has all sorts of different kinds of kinks and they're not really shy about sharing them, isn't being voyeuristic kind of tame at this point, especially for a show that seems to want you to focus on how edgy it is rather than the actual storytelling? I don't know. I just feel like if the episode is called Double Fantasy because it's based on this double fantasy that maybe Tedros has of dirty talking and then fucking one girl while another girl watches, like that's light work to me at this point, dog. Like being voyeuristic, like that was kinky and like it was kinky in like the 80s, maybe. I don't know, man. But and then to name the episode after that, I don't know. But again, I could be wrong though. Maybe it has a different reason for the title. I think there's other things that are dramatically more important that take place in this episode that the title could highlight, rather than the thing that the show I think very clearly wants to highlight, which is like titties, dicks, fucking gyrating, all that kind of shit. But since we're here already, I kind of want to start with talking about that final scene because I'm very curious what you guys thought about it. Like, did that come off sexy to you guys? Like, did The Weeknd deliver those lines in a way that felt sexy to you? Like, oh man, they about to go in. Like, did you feel that way? Because to me, his delivery had me thinking that he was like about to play a trick on her or some shit. Like the way he like walked toward that chair away from the bed, and he's kind of like looking at her, and then he's looking up. Like it felt like he was like about to like start going through her drawers or some shit. Like, yeah, like keep rubbing that pussy while I rob you and go through all your important paperwork and shit. Like that's kind of what it felt like. And I don't know. Like, was he gonna? I thought maybe for a moment he was gonna have like, since he was blindfolded, he was gonna have the Chloe girl come out and like go down on her or something. Like whatever the case may be, his delivery of the dirty talk felt like it was just like a way to keep Jocelyn distracted while he did something else. So it seemed like apparently that scene was meant to be played as straight up though, like straight up sexy, like it was played straight up. It just didn't work that way for me because I would start calling him the Weeknd because apparently I said I heard that he wants to go by Abel. I haven't heard that. I can't say I heard that he wants to go by Abel and then say I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that from a reliable source. I heard that on like a podcast. I haven't seen it like in the news, like, oh, the Weeknd doesn't want to go by that name. I haven't heard that anywhere other than this podcast, but he's listed in all of the work and all the promotional materials Abel, so I want to stick with calling him Abel, and I'll call him the Weeknd when we're talking about his music. But I just felt like Abel's delivery in that scene was just a little confusing to me, and it wasn't something where I think the show wants its viewers to be getting riled up in that scene. Whereas I was watching it going like this, like, what is it? Like, what is he up to? Like, is this for real? Like is he scheming now? Like, I was too busy confused by the tone of his delivery to even be thinking like this is hot or whatever. So I don't know about this show, man. Like I want to tell myself that it has something important to say because, you know, we're now 2 episodes in out of 5 or 6. I've been hearing 6, but then I heard that supposedly HBO said it's only 5. If we're already airing and we don't even know how many episodes it is, that's a problem in and of itself. And I think it speaks to all the rumors about how tumultuous this show has been as far as its creation and getting to the screen. I think that speaks to it alone. Just the fact that I've watched 2 episodes and I don't even know if there's 3 or 4 left. That's kind of crazy. Especially when I do this. Like you guys who might just watch the episodes and then be like, hey, let me see what the fuck Mike thinks. Like, you're not paying attention to how many episodes it is, but anytime I start a new show, I'm looking it up. Like, how many episodes is this? And it's kind of wild that it's still up in the air. But like I said, we're 2 episodes in out of 5 or 6. And this just feels like a generic story of a scumbag manipulating a young and impressionable girl, but just with lots of titties and gyrating. And I'm like, that's just not interesting to me. Like, I mean, titties and gyrating is interesting to me, but when it comes to like watching a television show and then coming on here and talking to you guys about it, I want to talk to you about the themes. I don't want to talk to you about the acting. I don't want to talk to you about the storyline. I don't want to be like, yo, Jocelyn Titties was sitting, right? Like, that's not what I want to hear. I don't want to come here and talk to you guys about that. Like, yo, did y'all see all that nut on her face? Like, that's not why we're here, right? At least I hope not. And it just feels like this show is everything that I have to tell people that Euphoria isn't. And, like, that bothers me because I feel like I can't tell people. Like, if you're somebody who watched this show first, and then you're like, oh, this guy also made Euphoria, no fucking way you're going to watch Euphoria unless you're just enjoying this for the sex and stuff. But, like, you'd be like, okay, is Euphoria the same shit? And I'll be like, no, but, like, why would you believe me? This feels very vapid and very empty, at least as of right now. It can become something different. But right now, it just feels like it feels like the goal of the show is to like trend on Twitter and to be talked about and to get eyeballs and views and just to be discussed, not necessarily in a good way, just to be the topic. And there's very little interest in creating an excellent television show that's being talked about because it's an excellent television show, or because it's an excellent television show that also has edgy material in it, like Euphoria. But like, this just feels like they just want to make something that's just gonna be trending on Twitter, and it doesn't really matter what else. Like, hey, like, okay, so let me give some examples why I'm saying this, right? Let's go over what we all understand by this point after these 2 episodes about Jocelyn. And in the things that what I'm about to say, we understood before the end of 2 episodes. We understood at the end of the 1st episode, but let's just briefly. She lost her mother, and we learned in this episode that she also got dumped around the same time as well. And she had a mental breakdown after these 2 events. We also know that she is still vulnerable mentally, which makes it easier for somebody like Tedros to come along, makes her more susceptible to a guy like that. That's what we know for sure, right? And that's a bit obvious, right? But we know that. So why was that video shoot scene with her wanting to shoot the shot over and over again? Why was it so fucking long for no fucking reason? Like, you get the point of that scene 10 to 15 minutes before it's over. And it's just, it's over and over. Like, do it again. And it's like, okay, I understand what she's dealing with. 10 do-it-agains ago, I understood what the fuck she's dealing with. And then I thought it was cut strangely as well, like jumping back and forth between her video shoot, her asking to do it over and over again, those scenes, and then with those scenes of her, I call them her crew, but like her people who are around her, spreading the information about her cut thighs and about what they learned about Tedros. And it was just it felt messy to me, this collection of moments that just kind of went on for far too long. It was like, hey, here's a little taste of her, well, not a little taste, it was the same shit over. Here's her asking to do the shit over again. Here's Hank Azaria's character. No, here's Hank Azaria's character learning about the cuts from one person, and now here he is telling it to someone else. And we're gonna spring in between that, we're gonna have another scene of her asking to do it over again. We're gonna have the black girl telling somebody else about her thighs or about Ted, and it was just weird. It was kind of just convoluted. It just felt clunky the way it moved back and forth. I don't even know why I needed to see what's his name, Chaim. I don't know why I needed to see him being told and then him telling someone else. And like, I get it that okay, they're all telling people, but again, it's like over and over and over. I'm like, I get it. They're all telling, like, I don't even feel like this needs to be on screen. Like, have one person tell someone else, and then I don't know. I don't need to see it over and over. But I don't know. That collection of scenes felt very clunky to me, and it just, I don't know. I thought that the whole way that collection of scenes was presented to us felt as if they really wanted to hammer home points that we understood before the scene even started. Like, I didn't need that scene to know that Jocelyn is having a mental breakdown. I didn't need that scene to know that her crew is some chatty motherfuckers who just spread, I don't want to say spread rumors, but, share information like that. So for that, and I'm not saying we don't need any of that. I'm just saying we didn't need however the fuck long it was. Like, we need like half that amount of time spent on that. That's all the point that I'm trying to make. I also thought the whole thigh cutting thing became kind of unclear. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, the thigh cuts. I don't want to say thigh cutting because that's what makes it unclear. So when it was originally said, I think Chaim was saying that someone told him that the makeup people had to put makeup over her thighs to cover up cuts. And I took away from that moment that she was cutting herself because that's what the show's been telling us this whole time. This woman is mentally damaged. She's got a whole lot of trauma. And then he's like, yeah, they had to cover up cuts on her legs. And you hear about that all the time. Like, when people who are cutting, they cut in places on themselves that they can easily cover. Like, they're not gonna cut on their face. They're gonna cut like, like somewhere like in between the thigh. Who's gonna see that other than somebody who's putting their face down there? So like, not a ton of people are ever gonna see that. So like, when he said that, I'm like, oh, she's cutting herself. More evidence that she's, mentally unstable. But then I thought it became unclear about the nature of the cuts because by the end of the long scene, she's bleeding from that same area, but now it's clearly due to her wanting to do the shoot, or like just continuously dancing. So now I feel like it's unclear whether or not the cuts were originally there because she cuts herself or because she works too hard, or both. She cuts herself and maybe she was working too hard and she reopened them or re-damaged them, whatever. I just feel like now I don't know if she's a cutter, if she's someone who does that, or if it's just like friction that's come from her dancing over and over. And I feel like that's now unclear. Whereas I felt like when he originally said it, I initially took it as like, okay, she's cutting because she's dealing with what she's dealing with, which makes sense. Now I don't know. And I'm like, why would you take me from a place where I felt like I understood to where now it's unclear? And I'm not saying I'm wrong. I might still be right. I'm just saying now it's muddy when it wasn't before. And I, like to me, that's the symptom of a show that's not quite putting forth the effort to telling a coherent story. And I can't help but say maybe they're not putting that effort forth to tell the coherent story because they're more focused on come on the face and spreading their butt cheeks open and all that kind of shit, right? Like, and again, no problem with any of those things. I'm just saying, when I'm looking at these flaws in the story and taking something that seemed clear, making it messy and muddying it up, I'm gonna look like, okay, why is this now happening? Maybe it wouldn't be happening if there was more of a focus on making sure this was clear rather than making sure the nut on her face was clear. So like that's what I'm talking. When I talk about the emptiness and the edginess of this show, which I haven't, but I'm about to, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So, another example when I talk about the emptiness of the edginess of the show and how it seems like titties and gyrating just for the sake of titties and gyrating. Jocelyn is trying to work on her music and is stuck in this episode. And she's like, maybe if I put a glass of ice on my pussy and choke myself, I can get inspired. And I get it. Again, like, I get it. Like, we're supposed to understand how damaged she is, and maybe even that she feels this could work creatively since she felt like Tedros suffocating her at the end of the last episode worked creatively. So again, I get it. I'm not missing the point here. But we all understand how ridiculous that is, right? Like, just conceptually and visually. Like, we can try to pretend it has some sort of deep meaning and that it speaks profoundly to the character, but I can't believe someone wrote a script that has a character aspiring to reach her creative apex via an ice-cold pussy and some good old self-strangulation, and no one was like, yo, that's dumb, let's not do that. Like, I can't. Like, I get it, I get why it's there, but like, we all agree that was stupid, right? That's a dumb thing, right? Like it's dumb. Like, just because it's feasible doesn't mean it needs to be made. Like, I feel like feasible should not be the bar. Likely should be the bar. Like, this is how a person would behave. That should be the bar, not this is how a person might behave. I don't know. Maybe you rub your pussy with ice if you want to figure out how to get over the hump. Like, I don't know, but like, that's all I'm saying, man. But the reality is that no one said it's dumb because the objective isn't to tell a smart and fresh story about manipulation in Hollywood. The objective is to get people watching and talking and trending on Twitter over how racy it is, and they're gonna tell you it's about manipulation, like it's some sort of deep thing, right? As if you need to, as if you need you need to show me the cum picture in order for me to understand how manipulative Hollywood is. Like, how remarkable and unique of a concept is that? People that work in Hollywood are manipulative scumbags. No shit. Like, I need a story about that. If you're gonna tell me that story, tell it to me new, creatively, and fresh, and not just be like, hey, we can tell this same dry-ass story, but just put titties and dicks in it, and everyone's gonna love it. And like, that's not enough for me. So I hope that one day we can pretend it's something, we can not pretend it's something other than that, a show that made sure we saw a character that had cum on their face. Like, let's stop pretending that that's not the show we're watching. It's very clearly that show. It was obvious when they made the issue for Jocelyn. Like, they could have said she had a sex tape leak or something like that, but the issue had to be that she has cum on her face because that's gonna trend on Twitter. They had to say she had cum on her face, and they had to show it because then people would talk about it on social media and watch the show. So that's what this show is, and I don't think that we need to pretend it's going to be anything smarter than something that's just a hashtag on Twitter. Like, you didn't have to show me that picture. Like, that didn't have to be the reason for her issue. It could have been something else, but even if you keep that as the reason, you didn't have to show the picture. They wanted to show the picture because that's how you get it going. So, anyway, another thing I didn't like, I think this is probably the last thing I'm gonna talk about that I didn't like before I get into the little bit that I did like, but I feel like we should have spent more time on showing Tedros winning Jocelyn over. Like, and again, I understand you can't very well showcase someone being mentally unstable if you have them resistant to manipulation. So like, if Tedros had to try really hard, then I'm not gonna buy that Jocelyn is weak mentally. You know, like, okay, she's strong, she's fighting it. So I get that, but she was awfully subservient and agreeable to Tedros, like, really fucking fast. Like, in that early scene where she's on the phone with him and her assistant is on the phone with Tedros's guy, Isaac, she's already completely wrapped around his finger. Like, she's agreeing with everything he says. Like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I totally do. Like, totally wrapped around his finger. Like, she's in already. Like, there was no process. Like, introduction, and now I'm gonna like corrupt her, and we're gonna work toward winning her. It was like, introduction, she's in, and that was it. And he didn't even have to try hard, and he didn't even have to be particularly charming. He just had to come along, man. They didn't really put too much work into convincing me that Tedros is good at being manipulative, or convincing me that, I don't even think they want to convince me that Jocelyn will be resistant to it, but I feel like they should have, just a little bit. Like, they not that she would need to be resistant, but just show Tedros having to work harder. Like, it just felt too easy. The entire dynamic with Tedros and the people who work for him, like, that's weird too, right? Like, let's talk about that a bit, because there's a fairly large development in the story to learn that Tedros has like a whole slew of people working for him to do his bidding and have infiltrated Jocelyn's whole circle. Like, we don't know his end goal yet, but learning that the Diana girl who's the better dancer and singer is working for him and essentially seeing him, I believe seeing him, and essentially him training Isaac in the art of the art of thrusting was like a mildly interesting turn of events. Like, his electroshock fuck therapy was like, this was a thing we saw. I don't really know what to describe it as. It was a thing that happened. I don't know. But yeah, I find that interesting that he has both Diana working for him to infiltrate Jocelyn's crew from a performative aspect, and then he's got Isaac working on learning how to fuck so he can infiltrate her crew from a dick perspective. I don't know. But I was kind of actually surprised the assistant had sex with him, because when she was probing him for information, it's kind of funny given the context, but when she was probing him for information about Tedros, she seemed none too happy with what she was hearing. So I was kind of surprised that he was able to still parlay that into sex. But then also, again, we don't see him working his way, like, we don't see him like really working her over. Like, it's kind of just like, you know, we see him, she's asking him questions about Tedros that is like cuts to them fucking. And it's like, I felt like she was kind of not into him based on what she was learning about Tedros through him. So, like, I don't, whatever, man. Let me not waste my time doing this. But the sneakiest, wildest thing about this episode is that terrible song about family at the end, and how after the girl sang it enough times, eventually Jocelyn joined in. And I'm like, come on, dog. Like, you're a pop star who hates the pop music that you make. Don't tell me you thought that family song slapped. That shit was trash, bro. Like, I get it. Again, she's easy to manipulate. I get it. She's been through some trauma. But that's why she agrees to let Tedros move in. I get it. I just still don't think there's enough gullibility in the world to believe that family song went hard. I just don't. Like, that shit was trash. And just watching them sing it over and over and then watching Jocelyn join in was, like, funny. Like, I'm not even sitting here like, this isn't giving me Manson vibes. It's giving me, like, this is so dumb it's funny vibes. And I'm telling you, they're going for Manson. And it's not working. They're going for Manson, and it's just, I mean, man, it's not working. That song was fucking terrible. That was all I could focus on. Was like, why is this song so shitty? Anyway, let me talk about what I liked real quick. I like the scene at the beginning when Nikki, who is Jane Adams' character, completely drags Jocelyn and her new version of that song. And I like this scene because I agreed with everything Nikki said. Now that's the reality that Jocelyn needs to accept, or she needs to remove herself from the situation altogether. But what Nikki said, no matter how shitty it is, the circumstances, and no matter how shitty she delivered that information, which she absolutely did, the delivery was terrible, that is the reality. Like, okay, like, we made you great. We made these songs for you. Don't start thinking that you something other than what the fuck we made, and don't think that we can't make another one of you. Like, 100% that's what that is. Like, look at, this is so mean. Look at Dua Lipa. Dua Lipa is completely fucking talentless. She can't sing, she can't dance, like, no. But they make great songs. Like, her songs are great. They make great, like, I don't believe Dua Lipa is like an artist who is like sitting there writing this music and create, like, she is a product. Like, they were like, okay, we're gonna make these great songs. We need a beautiful product to deliver them to the masses. And then if the product is pretty enough and is serviceable at dancing and singing, we can make her a huge star. And that's what she is Dua Lipa. I'm not gonna say that's Jocelyn because it's not one-to-one. But my point is that you can create this kind of person. They don't have to be particularly talented or good at anything. And Nikki is delivering that point. Like, we made you, we can unmake you, and we can make you again. And it's shitty. It's a shitty set of circumstances. It's a shitty reality. She delivered it as terribly as she possibly could. But at the end of the day, it's facts. And I like that scene because, like I said, I agree with everything she said. But then Jocelyn gets up and she says, like, I think she says, like, fuck you to Nikki. And then she calls everyone else there cowards, supposedly for not standing up for her, defending her. And I'm just kind of like, why are you assuming they don't agree with Nikki? Because I do. So, like, now, granted, maybe they could have been like, yo, you could tone it down. Like, you don't have to go that hard. But, I mean, it is what it is. But I think the Nikki character is actually pretty interesting with how she's plotting and scheming to replace Jocelyn behind her back, unknowingly replacing her with someone who's working for Tedros. So like, I think that's pretty interesting. And not only is her scheming interesting, but what does it serve Tedros to have Diana replace Jocelyn if he's got Jocelyn under his thumb? If he didn't have Jocelyn under his thumb, then makes sense. But he's got Jocelyn. So what does he need Diana to replace Jocelyn for? Or maybe Diana wasn't sent in to replace, and then now that's what's happening because Nikki is overzealous. But I'm curious to see how that plays out. I think that's an interesting plot line here. Another thing I liked was seeing Jocelyn broken down at the video shoot. I said I didn't like how long it took us to get there, how much time we spent there. But like her feet being all fucked up and her thighs bleeding, and when she called out to her mom, I thought that was a really good moment in that scene. I also thought it was a nice touch when after Nikki sends her home, they're helping Jocelyn walk because her feet are so fucked up, but the spotlight from the video shoot is still on her. And I think Chaim has to tell them to turn it off. And I thought that was a nice little touch. Like, I don't see why a spotlight would still be on her unless it's like an automatic thing, like it's set to like, I don't know what technology is like. I mean, you maybe could set a spotlight on a person, be like, follow that person, and it's like set it and forget it, you can walk away. But I don't know. I assume still that there's a person that manually moves it, but regardless, it's not really important whether a person is manually moving it or not. I just thought it was fairly poignant for her to be spotlighted like that as she's being helped off the stage, completely broken down. And it's like, spotlight! I thought that was kind of cool. I also continue to find her team, like I said earlier, the most interesting people on the show. Both interesting and entertaining. Like, I almost wish the show was about her team and dealing with a troubled star like Jocelyn, where Jocelyn is kind of like not important to the show. It's kind of like she's the person who fuels the problem solving that the team has to do, because like their banter is good. Like, I don't know. I'm way more interested in watching her team discuss her career and dealing with her than I am with watching Jocelyn live her life. So like, that's a more interesting show to me. But I'll keep watching this show since it's so few episodes. I don't have anything else to do on Sunday nights since HBO is giving me this. I'm going to watch whatever they give me. But unless this video, this specific one, gets a ton of views and comments from people requesting that I cover the whole thing for the purpose of making fun of it, because like, don't ask me to cover it like legitimately. I'm not going to sit here and break this mediocre fucking show down. Like, this shit is mid. We can all agree on that. Like, this is not a good show. Like, it might not be as shitty as I'm painting it out to be. It might become something better in these final few episodes, but I think we can all agree this ain't a good show. I'm not going to sit here and break this shit down like it's fucking Succession. But if you guys want me to like come here and shit on it every week, I'm willing to do that if the views are worth it. It's just, it takes so much time to create these videos, way more than you guys probably think. So, I don't know. It depends on what happens here. Who knows? But I'll still watch it, and maybe the show will make a turn for the better, and I'll change my mind and start covering it from an authentic place, really actually talking about it and breaking it down. But chances are it's probably just gonna be more nut and dicks and pussies and titties and all that, and a basic story about manipulation in Hollywood. So if that's the case, this will be the last I see of you guys covering this show, unless you literally have to fucking beg me for it. So till I see you guys next time, peace.